Welcome to The Explainer. We're about to dive into maybe the biggest story there is, our own. We're talking a 7 million year journey to figure out how we became us.
So what does a 7 million year journey even look like? How do you get from a small, kind of ape-like creature living in the forest of Africa to a species that builds skyscrapers, writes symphonies, and literally flies to the moon? It's an incredible story of chance, of necessity, and a few key breakthroughs that changed absolutely everything.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Our story kicks off in Africa, roughly 7 million years ago. And the first big move? It wasn't about getting smarter or making tools, no. It was way more fundamental than that. It was all about how we stood.
So let's meet some of the earliest players on the scene. If you look way back, like 7 million years ago, you've got species like Sahelanthropus. We're seeing the first tiny hints that they might have been walking upright. But then you fast forward a few million years, and you get to folks like Australopithecus. These guys, they were all in. They fully committed to life on 2 feet, and that changed the entire game.
And here's the really wild part. We were walking upright long before we were what you'd call smart. Bipedalism, this ability to walk on 2 legs, was our first big evolutionary gamble. Think about it. Africa's climate is changing, the dense forests are shrinking, and open savannas are spreading out. If you can stand tall, you can see over the grass, you can spot predators from farther away. It was a huge advantage.
You don't even have to take my word for it. Our skeletons literally tell this story. Take a look at the foramen magnum. That's just a fancy term for the hole where your spine connects to your skull. In apes, see how it's at the back, but for our ancestors, it shifted right to the base. That simple change is what lets your head balance perfectly when you're standing up. Throw in a wider, bowl-shaped pelvis and thigh bones that angle in, and boom, you've got a skeleton built for walking.
And you just can't overstate how huge this was. Standing up didn't just change how we got around, it completely changed our destiny. Why? Because for the very first time, our hands were free. Free to carry food, free to hold our kids, and, this is the big one, free to start making things. This right here set the stage for everything that came next.
So, we've got these free hands. Now what? Well, around 2.5 million years ago, a whole new chapter kicks off. A new group appears on the scene, the genus Homo. And with them comes technology.
Okay, so let's meet Homo habilis, aka the handyman. And just look at the difference here. The brain is getting noticeably bigger. But why? Well, look at the technology column. For the first time we see stone tools. They're simple, sure, we call them Oldowan tools, but they were a revolution. Suddenly, habilis could smash open bones for that nutrient-rich marrow. They could butcher carcasses. They unlocked meat as a major food source. And all those extra calories, they went straight to fueling a bigger brain.
But as important as habilis was, the real true game changer, the species that kind of laid down the blueprint for modern humans, that was Homo erectus. This was a hominin that wasn't just getting by anymore. They were starting to take over.
Homo erectus was an absolute pioneer. I mean, these were the first of our ancestors to walk right out of Africa, spreading all the way into Asia and Europe. Their bodies looked a lot more like ours. Long legs, shorter arms, a physique built for serious long-distance travel. And their tools? Whoa, we're not talking about simple sharp rocks anymore. They were crafting these beautiful, symmetrical hand axes. That shows planning, it shows design, it shows a whole new level of thinking. And just look at that brain capacity. We're talking up to 1,100 cubic centimeters. That is a massive leap from Homo habilis. Now, an organ that big is incredibly hungry for energy. To power that kind of growth, Homo erectus needed something new, a new source of power. And they found it by taming one of the most powerful forces in nature.
And that force, of course, was fire. Mastering fire was like gaining a superpower. It gave them protection from predators, it gave them warmth, it let them stay up after dark. But the biggest impact, by far, was on their food. Cooking food pre-digests it, unlocking way more nutrients and calories. All that energy that used to go into a tough digestive process, it got rerouted straight to one place, that growing, power-hungry brain.
Okay, now here's where the story gets really interesting. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors were not the only humans on the block. The world was, well, it was kind of like something out of a fantasy novel, filled with different kinds of human species, all living at the same time.
So, over in the cold climates of Europe and Asia, you had the Neanderthals, stocky, powerful, brilliant hunters who cared for their sick and even seemed to have burials. Out east,
you had the super mysterious Denisovans, who we mostly know about from tiny bits of bone and the DNA they left in us. And while all of this is going on, where are we? Well, back in Africa, our own species, Homo sapiens, is just starting to emerge.
So picture this. Around 300,000 years ago, anatomically modern humans show up. Our bodies, our skeletons, they look just like ours do today. But something was still missing. There was one final, crucial switch that hadn't been flipped yet. And this is really the million-dollar question, right? A Homo sapiens from 150,000 years ago looked just like us. So why weren't they building cities? What was different? The final great leap forward. It wasn't going to be in our bones. It was going to be inside our heads. And then, somewhere around 70,000 years ago, something just clicked. We call it the cognitive revolution. It was like a fundamental rewiring of the sapiens' brain. This wasn't about a bigger brain case anymore. This was like a massive software update. And it unlocked this incredible new suite of abilities that let us, well, take over the entire planet.
So, what were these new mental superpowers? Well, for one, our language became incredibly complex and symbolic. We could suddenly talk about things that weren't right in front of us, the past, the future, even things that were completely imaginary. We started thinking in symbols, which led to art and religion. But the most important power of all, we learned how to tell stories, shared myths, and these stories allowed us to cooperate in massive, flexible groups, something no other animal could do. It was our secret weapon.
This was the absolute turning point. Once we had these new cognitive tools, and then later once we figured out agriculture about 12,000 years ago, our development just exploded. It went into hyperdrive. Our evolution stopped being just about the slow, grinding pace of genetic change. It became about culture, about the knowledge and technology we could build on generation after generation.
And that brings us more or less to today. I mean, think about that journey, from a small hominin taking its first wobbly steps on an African savanna to a species that can literally edit its own genetic code. The long, winding road of our biological evolution has brought us to a brand new starting line, one where our culture and our technology are now in the driver's seat. That 7 million-year story, it's nowhere near finished. The real question is, what's the next chapter?